This is the 120-degree Creative Grid triangle ruler. Like all the Creative Grid rulers, they've got the original non-slip grips on the back of the ruler to help stop the ruler slipping on your fabric. What we're doing with this is, first of all, we've cut 2.5-inch strips and we've left the selvage on, and we're measuring in 3 inches from each end and marking a line. We're just using a washout marking pen. Now with each strip, we position it next to the mark, so we've got all 3 pieces staggered. With right sides together, we're going to join the three strips using 1/4 inch seam allowance. There's no need to take the selvage off, as that will be cut off later. Once you've sewn your 3 strips together, press all the seams in one direction. We always press from the back first to set our seam, and then we turn it over and press from the front to make sure it's sitting nice and flat. We position our ruler now on top of our strips, and you'll notice how the ruler fits nicely in how we've staggered our strips. And what we're going to do now is cut around the ruler. Just make sure when you do use your rotary cutter that you've got a nice sharp blade. When we cut the other side, you'll notice that we walk our fingers up as we cut. And then we simply cut off the little tips at the end. Now if we just have a close look at our ruler, you can actually cut the strips of fabric by using the ruler itself. You've got your 1.5, 2.5 and 3.5 inch strip lines, and you can use this ruler to cut out your strips of fabric as well. With all the Creative Grid rulers, they come with a full set of instructions and a project on how to use and cut the shapes. So once we've cut one triangle, we simply turn the ruler around, line it up on our strips of fabric. If it doesn't quite fit, you may just have to trim down one side before you cut the next side. And again, make sure when you cut with this ruler, you walk your fingers down. It makes it easier to cut. Walk your fingers down as you go. What we need to do now is we need to cut our next piece, and we can line the ruler up with the bottom of our fabric to create a nice square edge. So we're cutting a half piece now. In the middle of the ruler, you've got 3 markings. We use the outside marking, and that gives us our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So line that up with the edge of the fabric before you cut your shape. If we had have sewn those strips straight, the ruler would not have fit. That's why we start with the staggered edge. So we're just going to show you now the pieces that we get out of 3 strips of fabric. You notice the 2 bigger pieces are a mirror image of each other. One's got a large purple band and the other one's got a light purple band. We've cut a few more pieces out of other strips to show you what shape we're creating. See how the bottom section is cut in half? That eliminates our Y seams. So what we have to do is we have to cut the opposite piece out to what we've cut. So there's the piece we've already got. And if we flip that over and lay it on our fabric, it's easier then to determine which way to cut our next piece. Again, we can use our ruler to neaten up the edge of our fabric. So we position one of the lines along the bottom edge and we neaten that up. Then we turn our ruler around and again we line up the left-hand line in the middle of the ruler to give us our seam allowance. And then we cut around our ruler. Once we've got our pieces cut, simply lay them all down to create our triangle shape. Having the 2 pieces at the bottom eliminates our Y seams. When we join this now, we join the pieces in half. So we'll join one half first with right sides together and again using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Match up your seams and pin them if you need to. But what I always recommend is if you've got a lot of seams to match up, what I teach my ladies is increase your stitch length probably to about 3.5, and where your seams meet, just sew about 5 stitches over that seam. And then stop and take it away from your machine and have a look to see if that seam's lined up. If it has, just drop your stitch length and then sew the whole lot. If it hasn't lined up, it's only a matter of grabbing that thread and because you've used a long stitch length, pulling on it and it comes out easy. This saves you, if it doesn't match up, it saves you unpicking the whole seam. Once we've sewn one side, we do the same with the other side and we press our seams open. We're using a purple thang, which makes it so much easier to open that seam up as you press. Saves getting burnt fingers. See how we first press from the back to set our seam and then press it open from the front. Once you've got your 2 pieces, we match up the seams and join those the same way. Here's our quilt in progress. And here's a table runner we've done with smaller size strips. Very effective technique with the Creative Grid 120-degree triangle ruler. I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much as we have.